let's just face it, a lot of people out here, whether they're dating or married, there's a lot of people who don't know how to handle conflict.
Hey, what's up, you guys? This is Dear Shamika, and I'm back with the In the Gym series, and I have a special guest for you guys. Guest, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jerry Davis. I go by JD. I am an author of 2 books, 5 Dimensions of a Man, 5 Dimensions of a Man Reloaded. I'm also a life coach. I'm also the creator and founder of the C.A.P podcast, which is Cultivate, Accumulate, Prosper, with my co-host, Erica Jackson. We can be found on all streaming platforms, including YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music. And I'm also a fellow TSU alumni.
Go Big Blue.
Big Blue.
Yes.
HBCU, yeah.
Okay, so let's get into this life coaching. What made you become a life coach?
What made me become a life coach? I've always been able to give advice to friends. And one of my friends a few years back, or several years back, was like, JD, you make a good life coach. And I was like, yeah, I hear that term all the time. It's like, yeah, you give good advice. So I looked at it and thought about it, didn't pay too much attention to it, went on about my business. But the more I started looking at it, I decided to get a course, enroll in a course to get certified. Because a lot of people, you know, there's no license right now to be a life coach, but there is certification. But some people are just slap on the name, I'm a life coach. And, you know, just like with anything that you do, any type of profession or anything service oriented that you do, there's some sort of skill set that you need to have, and there's some sort of training that you should go through. So I have 2 certifications as a life coach, and I'm in the process of really trying to build my business, take it from being a side business to my main business right now.
Okay, from a life coach standpoint, I know this is super random. You might be like, what? But we talked off camera about the Kendrick beef versus Drake beef. From a life coaching standpoint, talking about the situation and what was said, because I know you listened to some of it. From a life coach standpoint, how do you feel about the lyricism that was mentioned in this beef?
You know, Kendrick is a master lyricist. Drake has his lyrics too, and I like both of them, but it was without saying it has become real personal. But I just think that, you know, the things that they're saying now lyrically they're coming with it. They're coming with the energy, but also there's some darkness to it, because now it's going towards family members, children, spouses, or significant others, and hopefully it stays on wax and doesn't spill out like, you know, unfortunately, like in the culture of hip hop, has happened over many years of beefs turning violence. It took out 2 of the greatest back in the day when I was coming up in the 90s, Pac and Biggie. Then, you know, and we just seen that things have spawned out of the booth into actual violence. But yeah, it's a lot is being exposed. As people who are fans, we don't know what is what, but the people who are around them and them themselves know what is true. So, and they said, you know, a hit dog will always holler. So, but I just hope it stays on wax and doesn't spill over. But the more they get personal, that could run the risk. I'm hoping that's not the case, because we don't need to see any other hip hop people or black people in general, whether they mix or all the way black, just in general, die over senseless, you know, violence or anything like that.
Okay. So the 2 books that you have written, could you kind of give a brief synopsis of both?
Okay, well, my first book was 5 Dimensions of a Man: Faith, Family, Business, Love, and Self. I wrote that back in 2015, and it was really a self-help book for men, but women are able to read it too, because what I realized is, as a man, that there's things that every man, regardless of age, race, or faith or whatever, go through. And I realized that, some people, my cornerstone is faith. Some people, they may not. So faith, every man has a family, whether it's the family he came from or whether it's a family he created with the woman. Faith, family, business, whether you work a blue collar job, white collar job, or you're an entrepreneur, or you do both. A man don't work, he doesn't eat. Love, the first love a man has to have is love for himself, because if he don't love himself, there's no way he can love another person. But then also when you get into the dynamics of relationships, and there's always, even the playboy, there's been some woman that he loved at some point, and maybe she hurt him or whatnot. He decided to pivot and start wilding out. But love is one thing every man has to deal with. And at the end of the day, every man, like Michael Jackson says, to look at the man in the mirror. You gotta look at self. So when I came up with the construct for that book, I was on a 21-day fast with my church. And so to help me not yield to meat and sweets, I began writing, and it just metamorphoses into a book when I started writing. The second book is a continuation of that first book. I ended up 4 years later, that was 2019. So it's almost like you do 4 years of college, you know what I'm saying?
Shout out TSU.
Yeah, so I added some study questions in there, expounded a little bit more. And like I said, they're both on Amazon. And I'm working on the third book, but it has nothing to do with those two. This third book is going to be more so a fictitious story of two men dealing with women from their life experience. So it's coming from a male standpoint. One guy's married. Even though I haven't been married, I have enough relationship experience and friends who are, but he had an indiscretion, so he's trying to make things right. The other guy, single guy, ladies man, had a epiphany moment. Now he's trying to change his ways, and he comes across somebody. So I'm looking forward to that. I've got to finish up on that because life be life, and then I kind of put it down. But that's gonna be my first dive into the fiction realm because both of my first two books were nonfiction.
All right, we talked about the fiction realm, but I kind of want to circle back into the life coaching because I do love this subject. A lot of people don't necessarily know what a life coach is and the benefits of having a life coach. What is a life coach, and what are the benefits of booking you as a life coach?
Okay, a life coach is first thing. What a life coach is not a therapist. There's a difference in needing therapy and life coach. A life coach, it's basically comparable to, like, I'm a big sports person. I'm a former athlete growing up, and you have a team or a player on teams, and you have your coach. Well, the coach kind of guides the team with what plays to run, and he guides them towards their strength. Like if this particular player is good at catching the ball and has a certain speed, he's a receiver. On the basketball, that's football. On the basketball team, if this player's strength is rebounding or he has mad handles, well, that person may be the point guard, other person may be a power forward. So what a life coach is, you listen to what a person is trying to do, and then you help guide them to be able to execute that, and you hold them accountable. So it's the difference with that as opposed to someone coming in, dumping all their problems and trying to work through issues of trauma. That's where a counselor come in. As far as with me life coaching men and women, I'm going to listen to them to find out what it is that they're trying to do or what the next thing they need to pivot to, and help them create a game plan based on what they're telling me, and then hold them accountable to execute such game plan. And that's really, and then far as that's individual, but then collectively, if it's a couple, it's the conflict resolution piece, because let's just face it, a lot of people out here, whether they're dating or married, there's a lot of people who don't know how to handle conflict, and thus why domestic violence is up, and people doing things that they can't undo. Like I used to tell my mentees in school, you can't unscramble eggs once that egg hit that hot skillet. And I would tell them in reference to getting a girl pregnant or letting their anger get the best of them, and then, you know, assaulting or doing something worse than that towards somebody, because you can't undo what you've done once you've done it. And that's because of the emotions of anger and folks not being able to, you know, manage their emotions. They spill their T is what I call it. T stands for thoughts, emotions, actions. Your thoughts affect your emotions, and your emotions will eventually affect your actions.
Wow. Speaking of acronyms, let's talk about your podcast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my podcast, C.A.P. And, you know, anytime you hear the word C.A.P, people always associate it with the younger generation with Uline. You know, older generation, C.A.P meant something of sexual nature. But yeah. So
other people may not get that joke or reference, but I get it because I'm old.
Yeah. So, but I flipped it to mean cultivate, accumulate, prosper, and I created that idea in December 2022. I asked two friends of mine who I had worked with in a student leadership program, Erica Jackson, who's still my co-host today, and Shamel Jackson, even though they both last name Jackson, no relation, but and they agreed to come aboard, and we started it last year in 2023. Now we're in our second season. Shamel decided to pursue other things, but we still very much cool, and we collaborate with other things. So it's me and Erica, and we have different guests come on the show, whether they're in entertainment, ministry, business. We're looking forward here pretty soon having our first person that's in politics, and we have them come, we interview them, and we have them explain their journey of how they cultivated, accumulated, and how it's allowed them to prosper.
Okay.
Yeah, so you know, we're on all, this is our second season, and we're on all the streaming platforms, YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple, so forth and so on.
Okay, so what would they type in? Just no cap or?
Yeah, when you type in C.A.P, now there is another on YouTube. There's two. There's another podcast, but I believe they call it No Cap. But our C.A.P has the dots, and you'll see myself, and Erica's kind of in the picture that we have, and you'll know the difference because our C.A.P is C.A.P, cultivate, accumulate, prosper. And that's if you go on YouTube. If you go on Spotify, same thing. You'll see the flyer, the picture of us, and I'm in like a maroon type of blazer. She's in a red dress, and that's how you can distinguish between the two.
What's the most challenging thing? Because I know one of the things that I don't like doing as a podcaster, because I am, if you know, for the most part, it's just me. I hate the editing aspect of podcasting. What's one of the most challenging things versus one of the most rewarding things to you as a podcaster?
The most challenging thing would be sometimes locking down the guests at the time that we say, like, you know, and things happen here, but we got it together for me to come on here. But you know, it's because my podcast, we only record really twice a month right now as we're trying to get sponsorships and stuff up. So, and we record on a Saturday. Everything is uploaded by the producer of the podcast on the following Wednesday of that week on all platforms. So it's finding people who have that time on a Saturday at 11 a.m. to come to that studio in Whitehaven to, you know, to be on the show. One of the most rewarding things is I've had people, ex-classmates from high school and college, that have tuned in. It was like, JD, man, you're doing it. We like the content. Because, like I said, the dynamics of the podcast is we start off with a segment called The Buzz, which whatever's going on currently in pop culture or good or bad or indifferent. We'll touch on 2 to 3 subjects of that. Um, and then we go into introducing the guests, interviewing them. After that, we have 2 segments. We do it differently. We have either pick one where whether it be music, food, shows, or what have you, pertaining to the culture that we do with our guests, or we have the top 5. So we alternate from episodes which one that we do. And then after that, Steve Harvey has the strawberry letter, where we have the banana peel.
Wow.
Where awesome. People write in or email us different things pertaining to life, whatever situation. And Erica gives her take, I give my take, and we allow our guests to give their take. And after we complete that, we give a guest opportunity to share with everybody their social media handles, how they can get in contact with them for their services or goods. And then we end it off with Erica giving the detour moment, because she's a playwright. She's done 2 plays, Detours
awesome.
and Detours 2. She's working on her first book, From Detours to Destiny. And then I give what I call the brain drop, which I share on my social media, but it's just everyday little wisdom nuggets that come across my mind, and I just share it, not only for someone else, but really be helping me. And so we have a fundamental way the show flows. And so it's not just, and it's to no knock to anybody, it's not just us just randomly talking about this, that, and there's not a flow to it. Because I'm a real structured guy. My dad was ex-military. So I like structure, but I still like the opportunity for stuff that's spontaneous, because it's free flow. But we have segments, because I looked at, even before I even started this podcast, the podcast that I admire, I looked at how they had some sort of like structure to it, certain ones that I would follow. So I was like, okay, well, when I decide to do this with a co-host, because I've done one before solo, but it was strictly audio, and it was called Life-gistics. It was back in the day.
Oh, that's dope. Life-gistics.
Yeah, it was a play on logistics. That on my link tree, there's a link to some of the old episodes of that people can listen to. And I had music confused with that. That was the only reason why I couldn't ever get it uploaded on a major platform. But I am looking to get back to doing a solo podcast. I'm still going to be doing my podcast, C.A.P, because that's all that falls under C.A.P, Media and Arts, with my forthcoming book and all that. But the solo podcast is more of an inspirational kind of type of podcast. Not that C.A.P is not, because it is, but I have a co-host and we interview folks. The solo one would be like I did with Life-gistics, me just speaking to people, not preaching to them, but speaking some life. And but it's gonna be a different name. So I'm looking forward to that.
Okay. If you had one word to describe your grind, what would it be and why?
One word, resiliency. Because I've had to be resilient through a lot of things, even now, through a lot of things that are going on. You always hear people say, life be life, and it do. And sometimes people see you, but they don't know what it is that you're dealing with behind the scenes, whether it be family, failed business moves, sometimes being in your own head or whatnot. And so when people see you post something that's positive or whatnot, they thinking everything is going great. And they may not know, man, you could be like looking at things and one step away from just saying, bump all this. But, you know that if you trust in God and you keep at it, and he's brought you through things before, you know that it'll eventually be all right. It's just, you got to stay resilient. And usually successful people are some of the most resilient people, because it's easy to give up. No matter what, it's easy to give up. It's harder to stick with it, even when family, friends, significant others, or whomever don't believe in you or don't see your vision. So I would say my grind is I'm resilient.